Oh my God, I'm on Watts Island. I may as well explore while I'm here. Howdy, guys and gals, and Diane here. I'm going to be talking about the Watts case, so please stay tuned. My name is Diane, not Aunt Diane, but just Diane. I am Aunt Diane's alter ego, I guess, and I'm a hell of a lot cuter than her, at least I think so. The reason I'm going to discuss this case is because while I'm not a true crime creator, I am a scam creator, and a small one at that. There are so many things about the Chris Watts case that is really bugging me, and some people out there are not getting their fair chance to say anything. This video is going to be done in parts. So today's part one. I'm going to introduce the characters, and then the ones with similar names, I'm going to use their initials. We will start with the family. CW for Chris Watts. SW for Shanann Watts. The girls are Bella and Celeste, also known as Cece. The Watts are Chris's side of the family, his parents and sister. The Ruseks are Shanann's side of the family, the parents and the brother, and we shall call them the R's for short. We've got the longtime friends. Their full names will be used, most of them originally from North Carolina. We've got Lauren Arnold, Stacy Fowler, Christina Meacham, who also became a Thrive MLM friend. We've got Chris Miller, also became a Thrive MLM friend along with his wife. Gina Dietz, Shanann's inspiration to become a CNA, which she did not end up doing, but she did stay. Her family did stay with them for about a year or so while their house was being built in Colorado. Mark Jameson was Chris's friend since childhood. Nosy Nate is one of the neighbors, the surveillance camera guy next door to Chris and Shanann, also a human watchdog for the house to chase away visitors. We've got Betty, witnessed unknown vehicles on the morning of the disappearances. She seemed like a pretty cool lady from what I've seen. And anonymous witnesses who did not want to be named. The Colorado friends are the Lindstroms, who is a couple. They have a young child and a teenage daughter. Incidentally, the teenage daughter had babysat Bella and Cece actually the Saturday night before they disappeared. And on Sunday afternoon, Bella, Cece, and Chris went to the little boy's birthday party on the Sunday, the day before the disappearance. Then there's Nick and Amanda Thayer. Amanda used to run the daycare that the girls went to, but they, knew each other as a couple, and they got together once in a while as couples. NA is Nicole Atkinson, a co-worker of Mrs. Rusick originally when they had temporarily moved to Colorado. But then she joined Thrive and became friends with Shanann as well. Then we've got young Nick, who is Nicole Atkinson's teenage son, and Nicole has got a toddler, and I'm just going to refer to her as Nicole's toddler. Chris's co-workers are Troy McCoy, Cody Roberts, Anthony Brown, who was a sensitive man who really wanted a child, an anonymous co-worker who did not want to be named because he had some information, and NK, Nicole Kessinger, co-worker and sexy empanada mistress, plus Daddy Dwayne Kessinger, friend Charlotte End, who's known as Leave Jim Alone. Now, the primary characters in law enforcement that dealt with this case are Officer Scott Coonrod of the Frederick PD, Detective Baumhover of Frederick PD, Agent Tammy Lee, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and Agent Graham Coder, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and Weld County DA Michael Rourke. And of course, more names will be added as I remember them, or if somebody lets me know that they're missing. Okay, thank you. Out of respect for the families of the victims and to avoid a copyright claim. In most cases, I will just use a generic picture. And the picture we see here is people mourning at a funeral. And in this case, it will be 4 different victims: a pregnant mom and her unborn baby, and her 2 little girls, Shanann, Bella, Cece, and baby Nico. Let's go back and see how this all started. Chris Watts was born in 1985 in North Carolina. Shanann Watts was born in 1984 in New Jersey, but her family later relocated to North Carolina when she was about in her early teens. They both came from modest backgrounds. Chris and Shanann met through Facebook. She had a friend who was the ex-wife of one of Chris's cousins, and he made the suggestion. At first, Shanann ignored it, but then she got the friend request from Chris, and she accepted it. When Chris and Shanann first started dating in 2010, they had an awkward first date when they went to a theater which was a little bit more upscale and you had to dress up a little bit, and Chris showed up in shorts. They still, enjoyed each other's company, and I believe later on they were able to laugh about it a bit. They both had decent jobs. Chris was an auto mechanic, and that was what he loved doing. And Shanann was working for an auto stereo store with, accessories and everything. They were both making pretty decent money. Shanann had a very large home built in a very nice neighborhood by a lake in North Carolina. And when the 2 families got together to meet, his family seemed a little bit, they were in awe of the place. They said, "Oh, wow, this is very beautiful. I've never seen anything this nice." Very expensive furnishings, nothing but the best throughout the house. There's been a lot of speculation how she afforded it all, and I'm sure a lot of it was bought on credit, which was the start of the problems, but we're not going to go into that just yet. The families were a little bit awkward with each other, too. Their styles of communication, especially between the 2 moms, were a little bit awkward, but it was an okay meeting. It ended up, that they talked a lot, and a few things they kind of disagreed on, and, they just tried to keep it very civil for everybody involved. Shortly after Chris moved into Shanann's North Carolina house, she quit her job due to some health issues she had been experiencing. One of the things that really impressed Shanann about Chris was that he was very loving and took care of her. And when she wasn't feeling good on one of their first dates, she had her head rested on his lap, and he just let her stay there until she was ready to get up, even though he had to go wee-wee. But he was just very understanding and sweet about the whole thing. The Watts family and the Rusick family went to the beach and rented a beach house for the occasion of Chris proposing to Shanann. Most of the trip was very nice, except for a couple of disagreements between the 2 families. Unfortunately, this is where more apparent problems start between the families, the future bride and groom, the future in-laws. Chris had originally bought Shanann a modest ring, but still pretty, but, nothing fancy. And she got upset and wanted a really, really expensive ring that was like $12,000, which was all of his savings. He had lived in an apartment after graduating from college, and he was very, very thrifty. After he paid his bills, he really didn't, splurge on anything. But he really wanted to make Shanann happy, so he bought it. And when his mother found out, she got very upset. Now, from one side of the coin, if I was her, I would understand how she felt. However, from the other side of the coin, they say he's a grown man. Don't make him a mama's boy. Don't try to run his life. Let him do what he wants to do. And that pretty much became an unfortunate theme throughout the whole marriage. While Chris and Shanann were planning their wedding, they had also decided to move to Colorado after visiting a friend of Shanann's, Gina Dietz, and her family at their new home in Colorado. Because Shanann used to be a nanny for the Dietz family, she really enjoyed seeing Colorado and liked knowing that there were friends nearby. The plan was for them to choose a house that would have to be built, and the Dietz family would let them stay with them free of charge until their house was ready. Chris had gone ahead and gotten a job as a mechanic, making very good money, but Shanann stayed behind in North Carolina to sell her house. In an attempt to make Shanann feel more accepted with the Watts family and to sort of break the ice, Chris's sister Jamie decided to throw a bridal shower for Shanann. Along with her mother, they planned everything. They mailed out invitations. They got a bunch of food ready. They found a place that was not at their house, but a nice little place that, they decorated up a little bit. And not too many people showed up. There was some conflict, as Shanann had discussed with her mom, Sandy, that the invitations were not mailed out. When they called to see why certain people did not show up, they said they did not receive an invitation. So Cindy, who is Chris's mom, and his sister Jamie were accused of not sending invitations. Shanann had been married once before and was divorced. Chris's sister Jamie was also married before and divorced. Her second marriage, Jamie's second marriage, brought children, a little boy and a little girl. And Shanann asked them to be in her wedding party. Of course, Jamie as a bridesmaid and the children as, I don't know if I read so many different stories. Some of them say they invited the little boy to be a ring bearer, little girl to be a flower girl. I don't know which one it was. However, there was a spa week. Jamie accepted. They went and got the clothes and everything. And what happened was Shanann said that there's going to be a whole, spa week, and that Jamie would have to take off work to get their nails, their hair done and everything and, whatnot for the whole week. Jamie was not able to take off work all of that time because she was a respiratory therapist, something that is not easy to get a replacement for and at such short notice. So what happened was Shanann told Jamie, then I don't want you and your children in my wedding party. And she kind of disinvited her at the same time. Now, Chris Watts' parents were still planning to go to the wedding until Cindy received a call from Chris asking if he can get $1,000 from her because Shanann wanted the wedding to be catered with a Brazilian steakhouse. Okay? Cindy said, I don't have that kind of money. I can't do that. And Chris got a little testy with her and said, well, then you can bring your own food to the wedding or something to that effect. And she was very offended. And she said, what about what Shanann did to Jamie and the kids? He goes, I'm not calling to talk about that. And they hung up, and Mr. and Mrs. Watts did not end up going to the wedding. Later on, after all this happened, she had written a book, or started writing a book, called All My Broken Pieces. And you can still find the first and second chapter of it online and even on YouTube, as a couple of YouTube creators actually um, read the story out loud. And it's very interesting. Also, I want to bring up the fact that later on, after all the, after the unfortunate deaths of Shanann and the three children, Mrs. Rusick, Mrs. R, wrote a letter to the law enforcement to go in the case file, telling her side of the story of certain things. And as a result, Mrs. Watts, Cindy Watts, ended up writing, her side of the story as well. And I don't know if I can put it on here without a copyright strike, but I could probably link it below in part 2 of the video. Thank you. The wedding went on as planned, but almost half the guests were missing. The Watts family, nobody from their side of the family came to the wedding except for the grandmother. But it still looked to be a nice wedding, and they seemed to enjoy it. Chris was working at the auto shop in Colorado, making very good money and staying with the Dietzes while he waited for Shanann to finish selling the North Carolina house to come and join him. Shanann sold the North Carolina house, actually left most of the furniture and stuff in the house that came with the house. So whoever bought it got a really good deal. She didn't make very much on the sale of the house. When she got to Colorado, she got a job working in the same place as Chris as a car salesperson. When the house was finally done in Colorado, Chris and Shanann moved into it, along with the dog that the Dietz family gave them, who they called Dieter. Shanann had noticed Chris was having a little trouble with his hands, and she said, "You must have carpal tunnel syndrome. You shouldn't be working with all those little tools, So he quit the job that he really loved, and he went to work for Anadarko Petroleum Company, which is what Shanann wanted him to do. Unfortunately, he took a big pay cut for that. Shanann had gotten a job answering phone calls at Children's Hospital in Colorado. Sometimes she was able to actually do the job from home, which is what she ended up doing, which worked out for her. It was very convenient. She was also selling handbags on the side. In 2013, Shanann gave birth to a beautiful baby girl who they called Bella. It was a surprise because she had told people she was not able to get pregnant due to her health issues. In 2015, Shanann gave birth to another adorable baby girl named Celeste, or Cece for short. In 2015, Chris and Shanann had to declare bankruptcy. Soon after that, Shanann decided to join a company called Thrive, which is multi-level marketing, which I think is a big mistake for anybody, unless you're at the top of the pyramid. And yes, it is a legalized pyramid scheme. Unless you're at the top, you're not going to make much money. You're going to put in a lot of money, okay, but you're not going to get a lot of it out. And you will see later it ends up being part of the downfall of the marriage and everything else. Shanann's parents temporarily moved into the Colorado home with Chris and Shanann in order to help them with their finances. Mrs. R got a job as a hairdresser, which is how she met Nicole Atkinson, N.A., I refer to her as. And the father, I believe, got a job as a truck driver or delivery driver. Now, Shanann and Chris were going on one of their Thrive trips, which actually the employee, the whatever, the contractor, that's what you really are. You are paying for your own trips when you work with Thrive. Once in a while, they will reward you with a trip and not even pay for the whole thing. So Chris was able to get out for work, and he went with Shanann. They went to the islands, Caribbean, and Cindy, Chris's mother, had to come and watch the children, which she didn't mind at all. She was happy to do it. Mrs. Rusick and Mrs. Watts had a couple of disagreements while they were both in that house while Chris and Shanann were away on their trip. They did have a talk afterwards, but they never really became friends, you might want to say. Shanann frequently posted on Facebook live videos promoting Thrive products. She recruited her toddlers and husband to appear on the videos with her, often when they did not want to. She said she had a great marriage, went on frequent company trips, drove a Lexus that she earned from Thrive in order to portray success, saying, anybody that wants me to help them, please contact me. The truth is that half the time the children were cranky and, weren't in the mood to be on the camera saying, say hi, say hi. And sometimes Chris would be exhausted from work. He was actually recruited too as a downline to Shanann, as was Bella, I heard also. So every time that she would purchase things for them with Chris's money, and it looks like, that she's making a lot of money. Also, the company car, the Lexus, you had to keep earning a certain amount of money each month. You had to make a certain amount in sales. And if you didn't, they did not pay for that month's Lexus lease. Okay, so she would end up buying enough product to cover the price of, that month's lease. I think it would have been cheaper to just pay $800 instead of buying all those products. But she really, really tried hard. I have to give her, credit for that. She did give a lot of free samples out too. I mean, the girl really tried very, very hard, and she wanted to please others. And one thing I heard was that somebody from her upline, kind of pushed and said, come on, you're not pushing enough, or something like that. Sometimes you never know what's true and what is just hearsay. But that is what I heard, that, she wasn't pushing hard enough. So that's why she was going on Facebook Live all the time. By the way, Chris ended up taking the products. It was a patch and a shake, and I believe a pill also. It sped up your metabolism, and he quickly got rid of his what they call a dad bod. He got in nice shape. He got thinner. His muscles were more defined, and he gained a lot of confidence at that time. Chris could not accompany Shanann on all the Thrive trips because of his work schedule, but Shanann had some Thrive friends. One of them, Chris Miller, CM, a friend she knew from North Carolina, who had joined Thrive. I cannot confirm nor deny the nature of their friendship, but there will be more on this later. Shanann was a beautiful lady who could have made money with a much less risky job, such as a makeup artist or working in a high-end boutique, without having to pay money for the privilege of working for a company. Now, we all have our personality flaws, and it's easy to say she was a different person online than in person to her family. But as I've studied this case further, I see that she is a victim of this MLM as well. In my opinion, she felt pressured to show that she had a perfect life in order to draw others into her downline. But there was a reason that Shanann wanted to work from home, to be with her kids. So why did they go to daycare school each day at a very high price? We'll discuss that in part 2. In the spring of 2018, Shanann informed Chris on Facebook Live that she was pregnant with a third baby in order to get his reaction. Chris Watts was always seen as a great husband, but temptation soon reared its ugly head when he met a new coworker who was glamorized in the Lifetime movie Chris Watts' Confessions of a Killer. Stay tuned for part 2, coming real soon.